Well, let's get the thoughts now from the chairman of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mond. Gary Mond, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So what are your thoughts? Where do we go with this?
I want to begin by congratulating Trevor Asserson on an excellent report. Do you realise there's something 9 million words of BBC writing has been analysed here, BBC reporting? And Trevor Asserson is a very serious and very successful lawyer. He knows what he's doing, and I believe this is only part one of the exercise. We'll be seeing future parts in the near future. What is happening is you've got your major media station, one of the world's leading media stations, essentially exhibiting unacceptable bias, and that needs to be dealt with. The best solution is for this to stop. I know lots of people are calling for the licence, for people not to pay the licence fee, or even for the BBC to be privatised, but the optimal solution is to stop the bias, both as regards Israel and Gaza, and of course in other political areas too.
But you know that if that is the case, and if the report is the case, and a lot of us watched a lot of the coverage on the BBC and all the news channels, I watched them all, including Al Jazeera, and it's fine if you're going to take a position and you're a commercial broadcaster. You can take a position as a commercial broadcaster, although most would like to show more balance. We try and show as much balance here on GB News. But it's up to the viewer whether they pay or they watch or the sponsors to pay for the channel. So that part of the equation, which is, I think, the issue here, is why people are up in arms about the BBC.
Exactly.
Because on some subjects it feels they've taken a point of view or a narrative, and then it feels like indoctrination.
Yes,
propaganda.
I think that's right. Older viewers might remember that former Prime Minister John Major in the 1990s was under pressure to privatise the BBC. The world would be a different place now if he'd succeeded.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether I'd go as far as to privatise it, because obviously they've got all the buildings, all the facilities. They would trounce all the other broadcasters. So I think that they would have to give all the assets back. And then they would have to start on a very skeletal sort of structure. They wouldn't be allowed to have all the stuff they've got and then just carry on broadcasting like that. I would like it all stripped back.
But I think at this situation, National Jewish Assembly and Campaign Against Anti-Semitism and some others are calling for an independent investigation. And this time, unlike with the Balin report in 2004, we expect to see it made public.
But it's interesting, really, because I think there's obviously a place for the BBC. I do. I think, you know, I have a...
Yes, I don't deny that.
But I don't want anybody... I don't want to feel like I'm being forced to believe in a narrative. And remember, we only had the BBC and a few channels. Then the internet opened up, and suddenly there's lots more opinions, and you get lots more information about something, and not just from one perspective.
That's right. We expect the BBC to report fairly and impartially across the whole situation in the Middle East and everywhere else, for that matter.
And of course, that is I think the key is there, that it being impartial and in it being not taking a position. And I suppose with the stance it felt like it took with Israel, it did feel, even me watching it, even if I wasn't to read any of this, it did feel that everybody seemed to be...
Well, the seminal moment was when the BBC accused Israel of bombing that school in Gaza, and it turned out a short while later that it was actually rockets that came from Hamas that destroyed the school. That was a seminal moment. There have been many other cases of bias. I mean, constantly accusing Israel of genocide, which is patently false. Helped to foment in people's minds that the BBC is biased. The Jewish community, in particular, believe that the BBC is biased.
Well, you know, I don't think they're alone in this particular narrative with regard to the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Well, so obviously no one wants to see mass death on any side.
No.
I think a lot of the narrative feels like almost as though people are able to excuse October the 7th and only focus on what's happening.
Well, we do see it from some of the other major newspapers.
Yeah.
We see it from certain other TV channels. And GB News is scrupulously fair, I'm pleased to say.
Well, as ever, and we always want the other side of it.
Yes, you do, and that's right, and so you should.
But, of course, the other side of it is that people are dying in this conflict, and I think that's what...
But what we need, the message to get across with people dying is it is entirely Hamas's fault. Hamas started this war. Hamas murdered 1,200 people on the 7th of October last year. And the war can end in 5 minutes if Hamas surrenders and releases the hostages.
Well, I mean, you've even got members of different parties, and in particular the Labour Party, you know, David Lammy, coming out and talking about, sorry, I can't help it, Gary, but you are sinking in that chair.
Yes, the chair, something wrong with the chair here. Not sure what's happening.
Briefly, though, briefly, your views on David Lammy and the suspension of licences to Israel, which you would think, seeing as we supply people like Qatar, who are harbouring Hamas, billions of pounds worth of equipment and arms, you'd think that actually perhaps they should...
What we see is rank hypocrisy here, absolute rank hypocrisy. And also British financing of Turkey in the massacre of the Kurds is another example. There's a lot of opposition to what David Lammy has done, certainly in the Jewish community, and we're hoping it will be reversed at some point.
Yeah, it doesn't send a great message at all. Well, listen, I'll leave you in your sinking chair, Gary Mond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Such a pleasure. That is Gary Mond. He's the chairman of the National Jewish Assembly. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. 19 minutes after...